Looking at it through this article called Bumuntu. Je suis parce que nous sommes voix du Bumuntu.
Okay.
Now, even if you've never heard of Bumuntu, you might recognize that phrase, je suis parce que nous sommes.
Yeah.
It means I am because we are. And that really gets to the core of Bumuntu, this idea of being connected to everything.
That's a great starting point. That idea of interconnectedness, like you said, is really the essence of Bumuntu.
Yeah.
But before we get too far into it, how about we take a step back?
Okay.
How does this article we're looking at introduce Bumuntu? What's it all about?
Well, it starts off talking about how everyone wants to find meaning in life, you know?
Yeah.
That feeling of wanting to know why we're here.
Makes sense.
And the article suggests that Bumuntu can be like a guide in that search for meaning.
It's interesting how Bumuntu answers that question of meaning, you know?
Yeah.
It doesn't tell you to look to some outside source or some big purpose.
Right.
Instead, it focuses on the joy of just existing and the importance of discovering yourself.
So it's not just about figuring out our place in the universe, but also about figuring out ourselves.
Exactly. And that takes us back to Je suis parce que nous sommes.
Okay.
What do you think that phrase means based on what we've talked about?
Well, if Bumuntu is about looking inward for meaning, then I am because we are. Suggests that who I am is shaped by the we, by the people around me.
Right.
It's like our individual identities are completely tied to our community and our relationships.
You're exactly right. The article uses a really great analogy to explain this point.
Oh,
It compares our lives to grains of sand and the entire universe to the sun.
okay.
Each grain of sand on its own seems tiny and insignificant,
Right.
but it's still part of something much bigger.
A whole beach.
Yeah, and just like the sun illuminates the sand, our lives find meaning because we're part of something much larger than ourselves.
That makes me think about quantum entanglement, the idea that even tiny particles can be connected no matter how far apart they are.
That's a good comparison. It's amazing how scientific discoveries often line up with these old philosophical ideas.
It really is.
But here's something I'm thinking about.
What's that?
If we're so connected to everyone else, how do we find our own individual path?
That's a good question. It's almost like those two things contradict each other.
It is a bit of a paradox, and the article addresses this through what it calls following the pattern of our existence, our own founding myth.
Founding myth. What does that mean in Bumuntu?
It doesn't mean an actual myth or a story that's been passed down.
Okay.
Instead, it's more about recognizing the patterns and events that have shaped your life.
Oh, interesting.
Like a personal story that shows your purpose.
I see.
And it's by understanding this personal myth that you start to find your own way.
So it's about connecting the dots of our lives
Exactly.
and seeing how everything that's happened to us, big or small, has made us who we are today.
That's it. And the article even talks about walking in the footsteps of Bakulu, the ancestors.
Oh, wow.
It suggests that by learning about their journeys, the journeys of those who came before us, we can gain wisdom and feel like our own experiences are valid.
That's a really powerful way to think about family history and how wisdom gets passed down.
Yeah, it reinforces the idea of interconnectedness.
Mhm.
We're not just isolated individuals.
We're part of a larger story.
Exactly.
But what about Lema? How does that fit in?
Good question.
The article says it's important to connect with our Lema to live a fulfilling life, but I'm not entirely sure what Lema means.
Lima basically refers to your true self, the most authentic part of you.
Like the real me.
Yeah, the part of you that exists beyond the roles you play and what other people expect of you.
I think I understand.
And in Bumuntu, connecting with your Lima means recognizing your worth and your potential.
So it's not just about understanding your past, but also about embracing your potential. Kind of like what people in the West call self-discovery.
There are definitely similarities,
Yeah.
but there's a subtle difference.
What is it?
While Western ideas of self-discovery often focus on what you achieve as an individual and feeling fulfilled as an individual,
Okay.
Bumuntu frames self-discovery within the context of community.
Interesting.
Your Lima isn't just about you as an individual, it's also about how your unique talents and abilities can contribute to the community.
I see. So your Lema isn't meant to be kept hidden away. It's meant to be shared to make a positive impact on the world around you.
Exactly. And speaking of making a positive impact, the article also mentions the concept of Mat.
Okay.
Could you explain a little bit about Mat and how it relates to Bumuntu?
Sure. Mat is often associated with truth, balance, and order. And it's a key principle in Congo tradition, which is closely tied to Bumuntu.
Okay.
It's about living in harmony with yourself, with others, and with the universe.
Right.
In the context of Bumuntu, Mat gives us a framework for acting ethically. and highlights how important it is to live in a way that benefits everyone.
So Ubuntu isn't just about those feel-good vibes of being connected to everyone.
Right.
It also has this moral side that guides our actions and how we interact with others.
Yeah, it's recognizing that our personal choices have a ripple effect and impact the well-being of the whole community.
Exactly. And this brings us back to the central paradox of Bumuntu. Je suis parce que nous sommes.
Right.
How can we be individuals striving to uncover our own lema while simultaneously being interconnected beings shaped by the community? It's a really fascinating tension.
Yeah, I am because we are is simple but so complex at the same time.
Definitely.
It really makes you think deeply about the relationship between the individual and the group.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a dance between two opposite forces, and finding that balance seems crucial to really understanding Ubuntu.
I couldn't agree more. It's in that tension, that back and forth between self and others where things get really interesting.
Okay.
It's where we can start to see how Bumuntu might offer a unique perspective on life and how we connect with each other.
I'm really excited to dig deeper into this paradox.
Me too. I feel like we've only just started to scratch the surface of what Bumuntu has to offer.
What should we explore next?
I think the next step is to see how this philosophy of interconnectedness affects our daily lives. What do you think?
Absolutely. Let's move on and explore the practical applications of Ubuntu in part 2.
Okay, so we've covered some of the fundamental ideas in Bumuntu,
Yeah.
like focusing on interconnectedness, understanding our founding myth, and connecting with our true selves, or lema.
Right.
But how does all of that actually play out in real life?
Yeah. How do we go from theory to practice
Yeah.
and bring Ubuntu into our everyday lives?
It's a great question.
It is. It's one thing to talk about interconnectedness and the importance of community, but how do we actually turn that into actions?
Right. Does it mean we have to make some big, drastic change in how we live?
Yeah, like do we have to join a commune or something?
Not necessarily. I think it's more about gradually changing our perspective. Just by becoming more aware of the fact that we're all part of this interconnected web, we can start to make different choices.
Can you give me an example? Like what kinds of choices?
Well, think about how you interact with people in your life.
Okay.
Instead of just thinking about yourself, try to consider how your actions might affect others.
So it's about thinking beyond just my own needs and desires.
Exactly. Bumuntu encourages us to broaden our circle of concern.
That makes sense. To think about everyone.
And it doesn't have to be about some big, grand gesture.
Right.
Sometimes the little things have the biggest impact.
Like what?
Like really listening to a friend who's going through something tough, or offering support to a coworker,
Okay.
or even just being present and attentive when you're with loved ones.
That's a good advice.
These small acts of kindness and care can spread out,
Yeah.
and strengthen the bonds of community.
That makes me think about Ubuntu, which is often translated as humanity towards others. It's that idea of recognizing that we all share this common humanity and treating everyone with compassion and respect.
I like that. Ubuntu is a wonderful concept, and it has a lot in common with Bumuntu.
Mm.
Both of them emphasize community and our interdependence on each other.
Right.
This idea of shared humanity really is at the core of how we can practice Bumuntu.
But here's something that's been on my mind.
What's that?
Doesn't this focus on community maybe stifle individual expression?
Huh. Interesting point.
If we're always supposed to think about the needs of others,
Yeah.
what about my own needs and desires?
It's a good question. How do we balance personal fulfillment with our responsibility to the community?
Mm-hmm.
I think the key is realizing that Bumuntu isn't about sacrificing what you want for the sake of the community.
Right.
It's about finding that balance, that place where both you and the community benefit.
So it's not like one person wins and the other loses?
Exactly. Bumuntu suggests that when the community does well, so do the individuals within it, and the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
Our well-being is completely linked.
I'm beginning to see how this idea of interconnectedness can be empowering
Yeah,
instead of limiting.
I agree.
Like we're all part of a web, and when we support each other, the whole web becomes stronger.
Absolutely. And this idea of mutual support connects to what the article says about Mott.
Okay.
You remember Mott?
Truth, balance, and order.
Yeah, and it's often associated with justice.
Right. So how does
Yeah.
that fit into our daily lives and practicing Ubuntu?
Good question.
Yeah.
Well, if Bumuntu emphasizes being connected and sharing responsibility,
Mm-hmm.
then Mott provides a way to make sure those connections are based on fairness and equity.
Okay.
It reminds us that we should act in a way that creates balance and harmony, not just for ourselves, but for everyone.
So it's like Mott adds a moral element to Bumuntu.
Yes.
It's not just about feeling connected to people, but about acting in a way that upholds justice within the community.
That's a great way to put it.
But there's one thing about Lema that I'm still not clear on. The article mentions that connecting with our Lema opens doors to opportunities and helps us live more fulfilling lives.
Right.
But I'm not sure how that fits into the bigger picture of Bumuntu.
I see your point. Let's break that down a little further.
Okay.
Bumuntu suggests that when we embrace our Lima, we're not just finding our own personal purpose, but we're also tapping into a source of creativity and energy that can benefit the whole community.
Oh, interesting. So it's like our individual talents and passions aren't meant to be kept secret.
Right.
They're meant to be shared with others.
Exactly. Imagine it like this. Each person's Lima is a unique piece of a puzzle.
Okay.
And when we bring all those pieces together,
Yeah,
we get a more complete and beautiful picture.
that's a great analogy.
We all have something unique to offer, and by sharing those gifts, we can truly make a difference.
You know, that makes me realize that the idea of success in Bumuntu might be different from how we usually define success in Western cultures. It's not just about individual achievement. It's about how our personal contributions help to strengthen the entire community.
You're absolutely right. It makes us rethink what it means to be successful and what it means to live a truly meaningful life. It reminds us that our journeys are all intertwined and our successes are connected too.
I'm starting to see how embracing this interconnected way of thinking can really change our values and priorities.
Yeah.
But honestly, it can feel a little overwhelming.
In what way?
Well, if we always have to be mindful of how our actions affect other people, doesn't that put a lot of pressure on us to always do the right thing?
I understand what you mean, and it's important to remember that Bumuntu isn't about trying to be perfect all the time.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that we're all connected and making choices based on compassion, understanding, and a desire to contribute to the community.
And that looks different for everyone.
Exactly. So it's more about the intention than achieving perfection. It's about approaching others with awareness and wanting to build positive connections.
That's a good way to think about it.
And remember, we're all on this journey together.
Yeah,
We're all going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
We're all going to have times when we fall short of our ideals.
that's true.
But the important thing is to approach those moments with humility and a desire to learn and grow.
That makes me feel better. It makes Bumuntu seem more achievable, like something we can continually work towards rather than a set of strict rules. Exactly. And this brings us back to that paradox of I am because we are.
Right.
How do we balance our need for individual growth and self-discovery with recognizing that our identities are shaped by the community?
It does seem paradoxical.
It is, and that tension is woven into the core of Bumuntu.
We've really come full circle back to what makes this philosophy so fascinating.
I agree.
It's both simple and incredibly complex.
Yes.
It makes us really think about who we are, how we relate to others, and what it means to live a life that matters. Couldn't have said it better myself. And it's that very tension, that dance between the self and others, that we'll be exploring in the final part of our deep dive.
We've been talking about this idea of Bumuntu and how it challenges us to see ourselves as part of a larger, interconnected whole.
Yeah.
But there's still that lingering question. How do we balance the I with the we?
Right. How do we balance our own individual needs and aspirations with the responsibility we feel towards our community?
It feels like a bit of a paradox.
It is, and that question goes right to the heart of Bumuntu.
Okay.
And I don't think there's one easy answer.
So it's not about choosing one over the other.
Right. It's more about navigating that tension, finding that balance between self and other.
Embracing both.
Exactly. To recognize that our individuality isn't in conflict with being interconnected.
Yeah?
But actually, it's enhanced by it.
That makes me think of a tree.
Oh, tell me more.
It needs strong roots to grow tall and reach for the sky.
Yeah.
But those roots are also connected to the earth, getting nourishment from the soil and the interconnected network of fungi and microorganisms.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
It really highlights the idea that our individuality, our ability to grow, depends on how strong our connections are to others and the world around us.
So, in a way, taking care of those connections is like taking care of ourselves.
Exactly. And that's where I think the concept of Lima comes in.
Okay.
Remember Lima, connecting with your true self.
Right, our authentic essence.
When you embrace your Lima, you're not only fulfilling your potential, but you're also contributing your unique gifts to the community.
So it's like a give and take relationship.
Yeah.
When we nurture our own Lima, we're also nurturing the community.
Exactly.
And when we nurture the community, we're creating an environment where individuals can thrive.
That's it. It's a beautiful cycle of interconnectedness.
And this cycle
Mm-hmm.
is maybe the key to navigating that paradox of I am because we are.
I think so.
I'm starting to see how this philosophy could be a guiding principle, not just in our personal lives,
Yeah.
but also in how we approach bigger societal issues.
Absolutely. Bumuntu challenges us to think beyond just individual solutions
Okay.
and to consider how our actions impact everyone.
It encourages us to work together.
Exactly, to create systems that support the well-being of all.
So it's not just about being kind to each other.
Right.
It's about creating a society that reflects the values of Ubuntu, a society based on interconnectedness, compassion, and justice.
You got it. And that might seem really hard, especially in a world that feels so divided and focused on the individual.
It does.
But Bumuntu can be our guide,
Yeah.
a way to reimagine how we relate to each other and the world.
But how do we start to shift our thinking towards that? It seems like such a big change from how we usually think about things, all this individualism and competition.
It is a big shift,
Yeah.
but I think it starts with each of us
Okay.
embracing these principles in our own lives.
In our own lives.
Yeah, like how we interact with our families, friends, colleagues, even strangers on the street.
So it's about those everyday interactions,
Yeah.
those little acts of kindness and connection.
Exactly. Those things can ripple outward and create a more compassionate and interconnected world.
That's powerful.
It's about changing our mindset from me to we,
Yeah.
from seeing ourselves as separate to realizing we're all part of a bigger human family.
This idea is so simple,
Mm-hmm.
but so profound.
I agree.
It's not about some huge gesture. It's about those everyday choices.
Right.
Those